Hello, everyone, and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Lamore. Now, today is a little bit different as we're not talking about sexuality or vulvas. And I don't know, it might come up, but we're talking definitely about something that we don't talk about, which is death. My guest today is an elementary school teacher turned death doula. She is part of a movement to create a positive death culture and believes that her job is one of guidance to help clients explore what a good death is for them. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Here she is, Nicole Daigle. Hi.
Hi.
So happy to have you. Thanks for doing this work and talking about all of this. I know you told me a few weeks ago or months ago, I don't know, time makes no sense anymore,
Right.
that you were moving into this line of work, and I had never heard of it before. And the more you talked about it, the more I wanted to know. So this is really a self-serving podcast. So thank you. Thank you for humoring me today. So explain, if you will, please, what is a death doula and how did you even get interested or hear about it?
Sure. So you hear a few different names for the vocation: death doula, end of life doula. I tend to call myself an end of life doula. In professional circles, I feel like sometimes clients get a little weirded out by death doula. I like it here, though. I'm fine with it here. And, also death midwife sometimes. But really what it is a non-medical professional. So, separate from doctors and nurses, who helps a person prepare for their end of life journey. Also often works with the family of someone who might be at the end of their life. So when somebody knows that they are at near death, so if they've received a terminal diagnosis, something like that, they very well may be in hospice care. They are most likely going to have a team of doctors, nurses, social workers already around them. But depending on their circumstances, often, even if you're surrounded by dedicated, wonderful, amazing healthcare individuals, because, of course, there are so many of them out there, they don't always have time to spend hours and hours with each individual patient. So that's a place where doulas can come in. In that way, we kind of complement the idea of birth doulas that a lot of people know of, that filling that space where healthcare providers just can't be there all the time. So much the same way where, I have a son, we hired a doula to be in the room. And it was so helpful just to have someone there to fill in with the knowledge that you don't have, because you don't give birth very often. You don't die very often. So having someone that has, that's been in the room, that can be a calm presence full of knowledge, tell you what to expect, give you some ideas of what might happen next. Yes, this is to be expected. This is something that does normally happen. These are things that you can do at this point. Managing people's expectations is so much of what doulas can do. It's a scary time for so many people, both patients and their families. So a doula can be so helpful there. And that's, for doulas, whether inside, a hospice facility, a hospital, in somebody's home, you can hire a doula to be there with you for hours. And that's something that healthcare professionals really don't have the time to do or the capacity because they have, many, many patients. I'm self-employed, so I can take on as many patients or as few patients as my time allows. So if somebody needs someone to just kind of be there and be a presence, you can do that. So,
Wow. Yeah.
I love that. It's really personal. It's really whatever an individual needs.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. And just being able to have the strength to hold that kind of space for someone and for their family, because there's so many emotions, there's so many dynamics
Yeah.
happening around that someone dying. And, there's family feuds that go on, and there's, spiritual leanings and non-leanings. And that's a heavy position to be in. So how do you take care of yourself so that you can hold that kind of space?
Well, I approach it as, it's not my job to take on any of the family conflict. It's my job to kind of be a neutral presence flowing through it versus having it flow through me. So that's kind of the thing with doulas, and part of our ethical code is, we're not there to put any certain belief structure onto a client or their families. We're not there to tell anyone, what the right or wrong decision for their situation is. We're there to give accurate information so people are fully informed as to what their choices are. And I feel like when people have that information and have more knowledge, that can really help to bring a lot of conflict down. So, that's one thing that I have become really passionate about is advanced life planning. So, people think about wills a lot of times. They think about, okay, after I'm gone, what's going to happen to my house and my possessions, and what's going to go to whom and all of that. But they don't necessarily think about the last few months, weeks, days of their lives, and what is there, do you want to have a funeral? What do you want to happen with your body after you die? People don't always think through all of that. So if you think about that, even, it does not have to be an end of life sort of thing, where you think about it right near the end of your life. I actually really encourage people to think about it way ahead of time. I'm working through my own end of life planning now. Like, I think everyone should do it. If you think through that way ahead of time, that can help cut off so much potential conflict. Because that it's so hard. You get to at the end of life, you have all this family around, and you're right. People can have conflicting spiritual beliefs. People can have, just simply different things that they want. And it is this time where emotions are so high. Things from the past come up, things that you didn't, you thought you were completely over come up out of nowhere. It's totally common. But if there's a document that says, I want this and this and this and this, and it's all written out, and you have appointed the person who's going to be carrying out all those wishes, then it's really, really clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't done any of that. I am proud of myself. Yes, please help me. I am proud of myself for just starting a savings account.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So like that's where I am for my future planning because I'm an artist and it's like, well, I have money now, so I'll spend it now. And you never know when you're going to get it. So, and I'm a finance degree, like I have a finance degree, so
Right.
whatever. I don't hold me to that, I guess. So as people are planning, their end of life, what are some things that can be done with the body? You were telling me about some things that I've
Yeah.
never heard of. So, outside of your classic burial and cremation,
Yeah.
what else is available to us?
Sure. So yeah, burial and cremation are definitely still the two big ones that most people go for. One thing that's good to know is before I go into other possibilities, for the most part, embalming is not required or necessary. So that's always a good thing to look into. It might be preferred in certain situations, depending on what people want as far as, open casket and, certain death situations and that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's really not necessary. So I always encourage people to look into that because
And what is that? What does that do exactly? I don't.
Yeah, embalming is just a method of it's basically pumping chemicals into the body to preserve it. And depending on where you're having that done, it can be phrased as pretty much mandatory, and it is not at all. It's not the law, I believe, anywhere. Don't totally quote me on that, but yeah, it's not the law. Definitely not here in Illinois. Laws vary state by state, so I don't want to be quoted in every state. But it's and for the most part, you really don't need it. And it is a whole bunch of chemicals that are being put into the ground. Or in the case of cremation, then being released into the air. So I always encourage people to take a second thought on that process, because sometimes it's just done as a matter of kind of habit and like that's what we do. And I think that that's one thing that people can kind of take a second thought on. Again, everybody has their preferences and their traditions and everything. But
yeah.
So a couple other options that are a little newer and still not available everywhere, because as I said, things are state by state as far as where things are available and where things are legal. Legislation sort of makes its way around the country. The Pacific Northwest always kind of gets things going. So like Oregon is always the trendsetter for all this kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a magical place over there. Very forward thinking and progressive. And yeah, they're on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So one really interesting option. And so I'm in Chicago and it is available in Illinois right now is water cremation, which is also called aquamation, or in more scientific terms, alkaline hydrolysis. And that is a process of here, you know what? I have a little scientific. Let's see. So it uses heated alkaline water under pressure to decompose a body in 12-ish hours. So, and then, so it's water cremation. At the end, you're left with pretty much the same ashes as you get from cremation. So they dry out the skeletal remains and grind them the same way that you get for cremation. So families are still left with something, with something of their loved one. And it's about, I believe, again, sorry if my numbers are a little off, but I believe around 10% of the emissions of cremation.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it's, more of an eco-friendly choice there.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely something to consider. It's just like what is like we need to take care of this planet, and
Mhm.
how I don't think we think about how our death affects life after our death
Mhm.
here, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's good to start thinking about, how to contribute to the world even after you're gone, right? In a
Mhm.
positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that some, people think of cremation sometimes as, a healthier alternative for the earth, which, it's true. It's not taking up as much space and all that, but, you definitely are putting those emissions out into the air.
Mm.
And then another one that's really interesting and pretty new, just really within the last few years, is human composting, which they're, kind of the friendly packaging name for that is recomposting.
Okay.
And it's
I'm
exactly
having
what
visions. Explain this.
it's exactly what it sounds like.
Okay.
They have pretty much like pods, and so the body is placed in and covered up. It's basically, it looks like wood chips, like a compost pile. So the body's covered up, and I don't have the numbers on me for how long that takes, but it's not long. Um, yeah, I think a number of weeks, but I'm not sure how long. But yeah, and then the body turns into soil.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
depending on where you are, you can then donate that soil to, to whatever, like, different
Plant a
natural.
tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I think families have the option of taking some of the soil home with them. It's pretty amazing. And then there are natural burial grounds around the country also. So you can use, depending on the burial ground and their different regulations, you can use like a wicker or natural fiber kind of basket, or just a shroud, and be buried in fairly shallow ground and covered up. And that's that.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
There are a lot of options if you're looking for a greener alternative.
So, why do you think that we have really kind of divorced ourselves from this inevitable fact of life, and that we won't talk about it and we won't plan for it, and we don't know how, even before death, how to treat those that are in that place, how to treat our elderly, and um, treat those that need our help. And I feel like society just dismisses those
Mhm.
people and looks over those people, but those people are full of wisdom and knowledge, whether they can communicate that or not, depending on what their situation is. But like, what is the answer there? Like, why have we split so far away from life and what it means to be alive and what it means to die?
Yeah. That's a big question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Tell me all the answers.
Right. Right. I'll give you the little bit of insight that I've gleaned in the time I've been looking into all of this. I mean, I think that part of it is that we've had a cultural shift in the past, I don't know, it's 150-ish years, not even that long of a time, Not that long ago, home funerals were the norm. So people would have had a lot more direct interaction with the full life cycle, including death. People much more commonly died in their homes, not in a hospital or another facility. And then it was common for the family to bathe the body and dress it. You would have the body, on display for a viewing in the home. You'd have the funeral in the home. All of that was done with friends and family right there in the home. So there was that natural connection, and that was sort of slowly outsourced to funeral homes. And then death became more of a thing that happened in hospitals and other, old age homes, other facilities. So we became separated from death more and more. And, with separation comes fear. Mm-hmm. So when it's not a part of your life, when it's not something that you've seen, little kids would their grandparents would have died in their home. They would have been a part of their whole death process. So you would have grown up with it. So I think that having that separation and being that cut off from death has really been a detriment to us as a society. Mm. And I think that, and that hasn't happened everywhere around the world. It's definitely an American thing. Mm. And, and then some other cultures and countries around the world too. But then, there are other cultures where, I think that the separation from death happens in a lot of places, especially dead bodies. But there are definitely cultures that still have more of an interaction with their elders and still have more of a connection with their ancestors and with their dead, as it, like they're already dead. Mm. And I think that connection makes for stronger families. I think that it makes us feel more at home with the whole process of death. And I think that we all need to reconnect with that. Because it's really alienating. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just afraid of that all the time, I think that really limits what you're willing to do with your life in general.
Yes. So we all lived through this pandemic, and the death toll was announced every single day, horrifying numbers. And even that, there was separation there. It just became numbers. We didn't actually think about what that meant, right? And do you feel that because of that, do you feel like there was a growing interest or a growing movement in the end of life doulas? Is that what got you interested in it? Or I feel like this is something that is a movement that's on the rise. We saw the rise of the birth doulas, and now it's oh yeah, of course, right? But now I feel like maybe this is something that, maybe it's been going on for a while. That's just been underground, and I hadn't known about it, and that, I'm sure that's the case. But do you attribute its rise or an interest to the pandemic?
Sure. I think that it's multifaceted. I'm sure, that COVID had something to do with it. It definitely is a movement that's been gathering steam, sort of in the wings for a while now. For me personally, it's been something that's sort of been growing in my brain for a good amount of time. I don't even know where I first heard about it as an option, but it just kind of sat there. And I recently had an opportunity for a career change and started taking classes, and it really I was like, oh, let's see if this really feels right. I've been thinking about it. I started taking classes and I was like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But I think that, well, and the idea of, branding it as a death doula and making it a job and this movement, that's definitely something that's coming into the public consciousness. But as far as the role and the vocation, that's definitely not new, right? I think that that's something that people have been doing within their communities for forever.
Right.
It's just kind of something that, that we're starting to organize professionally. Which I'm really excited about. I've met some really amazing people as I've started doing this work, and it's just one of those spaces where, as you would kind of expect for people choosing this kind of work, like everyone's amazing. Like I just met the best people, and they have amazing ideas, and they're just so great at connecting, and they're just so caring and wonderful. But to go back to your question, I think that COVID really did make a lot of people think about what was really important to them. And, there's been a lot of conversation about people really wanting to do meaningful work, kind of looking at what they were doing and saying, like, what am I doing? This is not going to cut it. And wanting to switch gears into something that really made them feel good in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am definitely one of those people. I mean, I feel like I've been really divorced from my humanness for a while. I mean, I felt like there was a part of my life where when people said like, "Oh, you're just human," that would be like insulting to me. But because I just felt like I had to be this like superhuman, perfect kind of person. And obviously that's not the case anymore. But I really, really felt my humanness. I felt more carbon based in the pandemic. I was like, wow, like so I got very connected to that what it is to be human and really feel my presence and feel my body and also like what it is that I wanted to contribute to the world. And I think I had been operating in a way where it was like, what can I take? What can I get? Instead of like, what can I add to the conversation? What can I contribute in a positive way? Instead of thinking about like amassing things, it was just like, let me just do this thing that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
Right. And have conversations like this, which makes me so happy. Yeah. So, what skills as an elementary school teacher help you in this path as an end of life doula?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it sounds kind of random. Sometimes people are really surprised at it, but it felt really intuitive to me because they're both just really caring professions, So, as an elementary school teacher, for me, it always felt more about, guidance than telling the kids what to do. I was very much a let's explore kind of teacher. The kids would get excited about something. We'd say, okay, let's learn more about that, and just kind of follow whatever paths they wanted to follow. And that's kind of how I view doula work, in a way, it's a little more sad. But that every client is different. Every client's needs are different. So, the work isn't just going to fit in the same box every time. For one client, they might need more just sort of companionship and conversation. They may still have a good amount of time left, and they need someone to help them run some errands and do some puzzles because their family just can't be around as much. And maybe families need some help to sit down with a dying loved one and have some of those more difficult conversations about what those final days are going to look like. Because those conversations they're painful and they're difficult, but, and not everyone has to go into all the details, but some families want to, and doulas can be there to help facilitate those conversations. And that's so much of what we do is we're not there to tell you what to do or make you do certain things or be the driving force of a conversation. We're there to help you say what you want to say, to help create the space for that conversation to take place. It's really so much about creating space, helping facilitate, so in that way, it feels so much like what I did as a teacher. It's, I was creating the space for learning. Here I'm creating space for families to be together, for families to have difficult conversations, for a client to have full knowledge of their health condition and their options for their health care. Because depending on what their situation looks like, people are not always fully informed about what all their options are. And again, as I was saying earlier, it is not a doula's job to tell people what choices to make, but simply to say, here are things that you can do. And I really love that about this work, because I have no desire to tell people what to do, and that's how I always felt with my kids too. Like I never wanted to tell them who to be or what to be interested in or what to be passionate about. It was always just a delight to watch them find those things. And that's what I find exciting about this work, is to really help create that space for clients and their families to find that knowledge, to find that connection, to find that sacred space for the dying process. Because that's another thing that we can do is help someone create their own sacred space. Because that's something that a lot of people don't think about, as we think so much about healthcare, and then we think about funerals. We don't think about, do you want certain music playing? Do you want the lights bright or dim? Do you want, do you want to have some scarves over a lamp, or have a nice tapestry hung on the wall? We can help with all of that to really create the space that someone would want to be in. Do you want your room packed full of family, or do you want to have like one or two people in the room at a time? And we can really help someone think through all of that and get it all written down so that there's no confusion.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing for me personally, that really my elementary school background helps with, legacy projects. so much arts and crafts.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, and legacy projects can be as simple as sometimes people like to record stories or write letters, but then sometimes, if people are kind of arts and craftsy, they like to paint paintings or make collages or, anything like that. And that can be a really joyful part of the process.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, thinking about what you want in death, I think it's really important to know what you want in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being able to access your desires and your wants so that when you're asked these questions, you have the answers, you know what's available to you, or maybe you make something up because it's just something that you want. So, but I don't think you can do that really well unless you can do that as you are living your life. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like so many questions. I want to keep talking, but I'll ask one more question. My question is, what can we learn about life through talking about death?
Oh, I feel like you just nailed it.
I answered my own question.
I think you did. No, because I was going to say, I think that is such a wonderful connection to what you do with so much of your work. Um, I think that talking and thinking about death really does help clarify our priorities in life. And to go back to what we were talking about with COVID a little bit, where it sort of helped some people at least reevaluate what they were doing with their lives. We were talking about jobs then, but it helped people think through so many things in their lives. And people are so scared to think about death, but I think that it can give you a sort of freedom because I think it was one of my teachers from my doula school, which I will shout out, International Doula Life Movement. They're amazing. I've taken several classes, taking more. They're just the most wonderful people. One of them was talking about, that we have this sort of romanticized model of, you're given 6 months to live. What would you go out and do? And we talk about that whole thing, you have, no limits then. Why limit yourself to the last 6 months of your life? Why not think about it now? I was thinking about that earlier, and it brought to mind, that Mary Oliver line. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And I think that thinking about death can clarify what we want to do.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. It really is beautiful. Just the cycle that we're in together and like the time that we have together on this planet and the relationships that we cultivate. And I think a lot of times you can think, what's the point? It's not worth it. We're all going to die anyway. It's like, yeah, but like we're here and it's a gift, and it's a gift to be able to have these conversations and to experience the world with all its many, many flaws. There's still so much beauty here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that clarity can be, we put pressure on ourselves for those to be huge, big ideas, but it can be anything, wherever you find joy and beauty, I think is worthwhile and important.
Yes, yes, yes. Beauty, joy, they are not frivolous extras.
Nope.
Yes. All right, Nicole, thank you so much for like
Thank you.
I was going to say, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much. This was so much fun.
yeah, and sharing all of these new to me ideas and things that we don't discuss. So I'm happy to have you here. And please tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. So a few places. So I am part of a group called the Chicago Death Doula Collective. And you can find us under that name on Instagram and Facebook. We are also hosting our first death cafe. So kind of a wide-ranging, open-ended conversation on death at Guild Row at 3130 North Rockwell on Sunday, April 24th at 11 a.m. So we'll have info about that on Instagram and Facebook. And then you can find me at my website, Nicole Daigle, Daigle, doula.com. So NicoleDaigleDoula.com.
It just flows right off the tongue. I love it. Okay. Well, I hope that you'll consider doing some like Zoom cafes or something for all of those not in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I think the Doula Collective, we are looking at all sorts of different events. Yeah, I think definitely some virtual as well. So I will for sure be in touch about that.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
please go and check out Nicole Daigle Doula. Say that 10 times fast. And you can follow us here at I Look Down There and me at Michelle Amore, and make sure to spread your legs and spread the love and like and share and follow and tell your friends. This is good stuff happening here. And remember, everybody, that confidence comes from the bottom up. So grab a mirror and look down there. Until next time.